When you get engaged, especially when you go to church in the South, people have all sorts of advice for you. They tell you to talk about things like how you'll manage your finances, where you'll live, what you'll do if one of you gets very sick or loses your job, if you will compromise on a worse brand of toothpaste or spend the extra money and buy 2 tubes. They tell you to talk about, we even got advice to talk about which way the toilet paper goes on the holder. No one ever tells you to talk about what you will do if you have infertility issues, or at least nobody told us. We had been married for 3 months when we decided to expand our family again. We had bought a piglet right after we got married because we thought that we could curb the baby fever and that micro pigs actually exist. They do not. With that, we tried and failed to conceive for 6 months when the powers of the internet agreed that we could consult our doctors. After a year of diagnostic testing and all kinds of procedures, we had a diagnosis, and we were told that we would not be able to have a child that was a mixture of myself and my husband on our own. We would need to look at various fertility treatment options. All of them were unpleasant and incredibly invasive. It became even less appealing when we learned that healthcare does not cover infertility treatments the vast majority of the time. With that, my husband and I always wanted to adopt children. Both my mother and my father-in-law are adopted. We did make sure that my husband and I are not related, just in case. Did check that. But with that, infertility just moved up our timeline for us. We went to an information meeting for foster care under the expectation that it was a fact-finding night. Instead, we left ready to begin the process immediately. We were not prepared for the information that we found out that night or for the vast amount of information that we have found out since. Foster care is a system that is overlooked, that most people don't know a lot of information about. It is something that you hear about in polarized media stories or in social media posts online where people are typically only telling one side or another of the story. I would be willing to wager that most of you cannot tell me the steps to become a foster parent. You don't know how to start the process. Most people are not aware of the requirements to have a foster home or what, if any, trainings are required when the children are actually in your care. This wide problem of lack of knowledge about the foster care system is absolutely a pervasive issue in the foster care world, and it is something that we need to address. Tonight, I would like to provide you with information and hopefully encourage you to get involved in this process of fixing this system that absolutely needs your help. My husband and I were licensed to foster in 2017. We decided to become a foster to adopt home, which just means that we would foster children, and then if one of them needed an adoptive home long term, we would already be able to meet that need without additional paperwork, which was a win for us. We received our first placement within 1 week of our home being open. She was 2.5 and delightful. She came to us as an emergency placement, which is where children are removed from their home due to either one large situation that warrants removal or several repeated instances over time. H had witnessed domestic violence within her home, and so she was removed and placed with us. She came at 11 p.m. at night with only the clothes on her back, and she was terrified. Again, she was the best first placement for us. We were very fortunate. All of her workers were fantastic. Her personality was just joyful all the time, despite her circumstances. And we were able to build a really great relationship with her biological mom, which absolutely helped to make this more of a better transition for her, create some stability with all the changes in her life. We had been foster parents for 3 months when we decided we were ready to take on another potentially long-term placement. This was not going to be an emergency placement. This was a relinquishment of 3 brothers by their aunt. She had received custody of 4 boys when they were removed from their parents 8 months prior. During that time, the oldest brother went to a mental health facility to receive deep therapeutic treatment for some issues that he had and some trauma. With that, when she decided she could no longer care for the 3 nephews, the 2 next oldest brothers went to a foster home that had extensive experience with adolescent boys. It was determined that due to his age, the youngest brother would not be safe if he was placed in the same home as his older brothers, and so since we were in close proximity and could maintain sibling visits, he was going to come and stay with us. Sibling separation is always something that the state tries to avoid if at all possible. It's really only considered if there's a significant safety concern or if there just absolutely is not a home that can accommodate all of the children in one place. With that, we were told when he was placed with us that the state would never advocate for these children returning to what his workers called the worst home they had ever seen in person. That's a big deal for the state. The goal is always biological reunification. We were also told that this child would never be adoptable because they couldn't move forward with parental rights termination. This is also something the state considers very heavy. They don't like to move toward terminating rights if they can avoid it at all. So with that, it was going to leave us in a very daunting position. He was essentially going to have to be in foster care until he aged out of the system at 18. We decided not to let that deter us and went ahead and accepted him as placement. Anytime that you take a placement, the state tells you to please wait to make any decisions regarding any changes for at least 30 days. It's a very, very stressful time for new placements coming in, and they don't want you to ask to remove a child during that time frame. When H came, she took all of 12 hours to seem to adjust. She had a few issues as we moved forward, but they were easily worked through and really not that bad. When Jay came, we had built up this false sense of parenting ability in ourselves, and we were not prepared. He screamed all the time. He had severe separation anxiety. He had food hoarding tendencies. He had several developmental delays, physical delays. He yelled just all the time for no reason. He had a very strong reaction to everything. At 17 months old, these behaviors were not his fault. As foster parents, we knew that. We understood that what he needed was time and love and consistency, and it was still hard. It was not something that just came easily. We were able to eventually begin working through his trauma and building trust with him and getting him on a positive trajectory, and we are so thankful that he was able to kind of begin overcoming those traumas. After being in our home for 6 months, H was able to go back to her mom's house, and she was on what's called a monitored return, which is where the child is placed back into the situation they were removed from, with the state continuing to stay involved in the case and provide support. After she left, we took placement of a brother and a sister, which essentially gave us 3 2-year-olds, which is too many 2-year-olds. Too many. We then found out that the state actually was going to move forward with termination of parental rights in Jay's case. That was a very tumultuous time. That's a big deal. It's a big step for any case. After several months on a monitored return, we were called and asked if H could come back to us as her monitored return home had failed. It was very sad. Her mom had worked very hard. She had done a lot of diligent work. Sometimes that just is not enough and they need some more support. So H came back to us, which gave us 2 2-year-olds and 2 3-year-olds and a lot of stress-induced heartburn. That is a lot of toddlers to strap into car seats every single time you want to go anywhere, all the time. After 9 months in our care, the brother and sister we loved on returned to their mom. She was able to keep up a good trajectory. She got the support she needed. She was able to make positive changes, and they are doing very well still to this day. So then we found out within 7 days of each other that H would be going to live permanently with a grandparent and that we would officially be adopting Jay. That was a very emotional 7 days. The thing about foster care is the state is very upfront that unrelated adoption is never the first choice. It's always reunification with biological families. However, there are times where that is not an acceptable option. There just is no family that's willing or able to take the child. In that case, they absolutely need homes who are willing to adopt through foster care. Currently, there are thousands of children just waiting to be adopted. They're already ready and their rights have been terminated. They just need a home to go to, and it is absolutely a system that we need more people to look into and be willing to pursue. We adopted our son in February of 2019, and it was the absolute best day ever. He is now forever a part of our family, and we're so grateful. When you are adopting through the state, there are a lot of systems in place, but it is not nearly as cost heavy as private adoption. After we had adopted, we ended up taking another foster placement that was 13 days younger than Jay. I can confirm twin tornadoes are no joke. And neither is quarantining with a child you just met the week prior. That was a lot. During this time, we also took in a newborn boy who we were told we would absolutely 100% be able to adopt, only for him to go to unrelated or unknown family 3 months later. We were devastated. We were told that that would absolutely be our child. But in foster care, everything has a lot of ups and downs. Nothing's ever sure until it's happening, and even then there's usually an appeal period where it can change. So after he left, we had the 2 boys, partners in crime. We had several months, and then our little guy was able to go to his family out far in state, and so he was able to move in with them. He also was doing very, very well. We were able to still stay in contact with him, which is very nice. Now, I say all of that to say this. Foster care is a system predicated on the belief that people will help children in need, and there are a lot of children in need. Currently, as of February 2023, there are 11,103 children in the foster care system in the state of Texas. Over 700 of those children live in Tarrant County. In the United States, there are 400,000 children in foster care in the United States. That's too many. After we'd had a little bit of a pause from Jay's partner in crime, we had a 2-year-old little girl come to live with us. She quickly was allowed to go back to live with an aunt and siblings. And then we got another call about a newborn. She was 4 days old. She weighed 4 pounds and 13 ounces and was the perfect baby. My husband quickly fell in love, and I'm still convinced that she's his favorite female in the entire world. When she went to live with family, we were devastated, especially my husband, so we took a pause. You're able to do that. We said we didn't want any placements for a while so we could get our emotions kind of under control, get our bearings, and then we discovered that Jay needed some additional support, so we wanted to be able to focus on him and provide one-on-one care. After that, we decided to move, which pushed our reopening even further. Now, I mentioned earlier that there are 400,000 children in foster care in the United States, and I just want to hit home how many people that is. That is more than the entire population of Iceland. That's too many children, and there are not enough foster homes available. The problem is that you hear all these negative things about a system that you're maybe not very familiar with. You hear that there are bad foster homes, and we have met so many foster homes within our time fostering, and I can tell you that's not the case. The overwhelming majority of them are wonderful, lovely people who advocate for their children. They love them while they're in their home, and they do their best for them. The problem is the lack of homes, which overwhelms those homes that are in place. There are children currently sleeping in homeless shelters and group homes because there are not enough foster homes available to them. Whenever we tell someone that we foster, inevitably we hear over and over and over, I could never do that, I'd be too attached. And I always say, that's sort of the point. What child needs attachment and love and stability more than a child who's experiencing the worst part of their life through no fault of their own? This is a hard time, and they need that support. They need to feel the stable encouragement of love. We have talked with a lot of people, and it is something that is very important. Most people are not sure how to even begin the process. So for today, I would just like to leave you with 3 points. The first is that foster care is a very important system. I firmly believe that all of you should be involved. Now, I say that because I know that you can. I 100% believe that if any of you saw a child on the street who was being abused, who was hungry, who was alone and scared or needed someone to intervene in their life, you would do it. You would not walk on by. You would not just assume someone else would take care of it or that it didn't matter. You would intervene. And I just want to remind you that these children that are in foster care in our state and in our county are not some commercial with sad music playing in the background. They are in your neighborhoods and they need your help. I, again, advocate that you will get involved when you are aware of the problem. So this is me letting you know there's a problem and we need your help. The second thing is that if you just absolutely are not able to foster right now, there are other ways that you can get involved. You can become a CASA advocate. You can donate to foster closets. You can become a respite provider or a designated babysitter for a foster family. You can volunteer with foster agencies, and at the very minimum, you can let all state representatives know that foster care needs more support and more awareness. If you have any questions or you're not sure where to get started, I am happy to speak with you. You can also go to any of the websites on the screen, and they will be a great jumping off point for you to figure out ways that you personally can get involved. The final thing that I would like to leave you with tonight is that the toilet paper goes over the roll and not under. Thank you so much.